excited to have you. Sorry. Good evening. I am so excited to have you tonight on No Dumb Questions. Tonight, I have the opportunity to introduce you, some of you, to someone who many of you might actually think you know. You've heard about her through her ex-husband's art. But more important than that, if you've been watching, she's somebody who has been doing quite a bit of work in the community. My good friend Malak Compton Rock is somebody I met years ago. And I've watched her take an idea and turn it into a way of life. Different people are given access to so many resources, and not everybody who's given access to resources does something meaningful with them. And tonight you get to meet somebody who has taken her piece of the pie and shared it all over the world. So please join me for our guest this evening on No Dumb Questions, Malak Compton Rock.
Good
Malak
evening.
in the building.
How are you?
My goodness, I am having the time of my life. How about you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to chat with you.
Well, first of all, let me just say that is a gorgeous color on you.
Oh, thank you.
For real.
I appreciate that.
Is it part
coming
of
from you? That's high praise.
Well, thank you very much. Is this part of a sorority thing? I know your Howard roots run deep.
I am Howard roots. This is not a sorority thing. This is just my color, as you pointed out.
So is it a thing? Did you actually do a color study?
You know what? I haven't ever done a color study, but I think when you get to be my age, Steve, you know what colors work for you and what colors don't.
Well, good, because when you crack 30, I guess when you're approaching 30, you start to know your colors.
Yeah. Oh, you're so kind.
and you landed on pink. So, because not a lot of people feel comfortable, especially light-skinned folks. We try, we can end up looking naked if we wear pink, right? Pink or beige, right? So, but you pulling it off.
I'm a pink girl. Really? All shades of pink. Mm-hmm.
So this is the color that you wear more than just. This is not like your once in a while. Like this is kind of your go-to.
No. This is my go-to.
Okay, well then there it is. You killed it for sure.
Thank
you.
You
and I haven't spoken in quite some time because really one of the last times we spoke, you were taking my son to South Africa.
And I just came across a picture a couple of days ago of your son in South Africa, and it made me smile. Like literally just 2 days ago.
It was funny. So we're talking about my oldest son. His name is Mason. And Mason is a college sophomore.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy? So is Lola.
Shut the front door. Shut the front door.
I know.
Where's she in school?
American University of Paris.
Well, why wouldn't she be? She's your daughter.
She only wanted to go overseas.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So my college tour with her was so much fun because we were in Europe the whole time.
What other schools did she look at?
She looked at a lot of schools in London. And I actually thought that she would attend London College of Communications. That was her first choice. And she was super excited to be accepted. However, we have COVID babies, right?
Right.
And that first year was completely online. And she just felt like getting used to the UK system of education and being online would be difficult. So she went to American University of Paris and then ended up falling in love with it. And I was just in Paris with her for 9 days, Steve. And I let my child lead me through Paris through her eyes. And it was a blast.
Tell me about that. So my sons, I think our firstborn, I think they're the same person. I think we snapped them in half. You and Chris got one. Me and Lalani got the other.
Exactly.
Mine doesn't want to come home at all, which for his mother is not okay.
I'm sure.
But for you, it's like, don't come home because I actually want to come to you.
You have that exactly correct.
So she took you through Paris. I've been to Paris once. The food was gross. I ain't gonna lie.
It's not for everybody, but you need to let Lola curate the next time you're there.
Okay.
She's going to take you to lots of non-Parisian restaurants because she's a foodie, which is another reason why she wanted to go overseas.
Okay. Now tell me what the trip was like going through your daughter's eyes to Paris.
Well, first of all, I was moving her into her apartment for sophomore year, but it wasn't available right away. So she said, Mom, we're going to stay in an Airbnb. I don't want to stay in a hotel. Now, by the way, I actually wanted to stay in a hotel because I wanted to be pampered and taken care of.
No, wait, stop, because I cannot imagine that Malak wanted to be pampered. You, not you.
Yes. So I had just come off of a lot of travel and I just wanted to stay in a hotel and have everything taken care of. But I said, okay, fine. We'll stay in an Airbnb. She chose a sweet little neighborhood called Saint Germain. Very non-touristy, right? Okay. So we were in the heart of just where regular Parisians live and work and shop. So that was one thing that was really.
Was Chris with you?
No, he was actually filming, so he couldn't come.
Does he at least, we're talking about Chris Rock, Malak's ex-husband. Does Chris FaceTime you? Because how do you do everyone else is does college tours, not in Paris. So how does her dad do it?
Well, he went to go visit her right before she came home for the summer. He actually went to go visit her, and he spent about 4 days with her and kind of saw Paris through her eyes as well. So the original college tour that I did with her, where we went to London, we went to Scotland, we visited University of Edinburgh, we went to St. Andrews and Paris. I sent him lots of pictures and videos.
I just love people doing well. I am such a fan of Black people. I just want to take a second. I just love to see Black folks doing well. And you could tell me all those places again, because Mason and I went to New Orleans. Our college tour was Atlanta. Well, we did Philly, Atlanta, and New Orleans, but you guys went to Scotland.
Yes. Steve is talking about his extremely brilliant, well-accomplished son.
Well, he did work really hard, and he's grown.
He did work really hard.
He's grown. So he's actually taller than I am now.
Is he really?
Yeah. Didn't look like it was going to happen, right?
No, I didn't think so.
It was
so there's no stopping him now.
No, you can't tell him nothing now. That's right. He went into high school. He was 14. He was a young 14, and he was about 5'2". When you met, 5'2", 5'3", and now he's you let him tell he's 5'10" and 5'11".
And what does Dad say?
Dad says he's 5'9" and he needs to stop tripping. But he's not 5'2" anymore. So you and Lola go on this trip. Now, what to me is really dope about this is that you're in the community.
We were in the community
because that's really you. A lot of people don't know that.
That is true. That you're absolutely right. So Lola took me to her favorite grocery stores. Again, I told you she's a foodie. So not only does she like fine dining, well, no, not just fine dining, from street food to fine dining, but she also is a great chef. So really? Yes, an extraordinary chef. So she took me to all her favorite small grocery stores. Mommy, this is where I buy my meat. This is where I buy my seafood. This is where I buy my vegetables. She took me to little tiny neighborhoods where she goes thrift shopping. And, I met friends of hers.
Does she speak French? And it's a dumb question. Does she speak French?
That is actually not a dumb question, because no, she went to Paris with how many years of Spanish? She started Spanish when she was 2 and absolutely no French.
Daughter. This is your daughter.
No French.
No. This is your daughter. This is your daughter. Let me tell you, folks, why I'm saying this is Malak's daughter. Malak Kamtarak, when she and I first met, she was taking children on something called Journey for Change. It was an organization that she had started where she was taking children not on a trip, because that's not fair to call it a trip by any stretch of the imagination. It was a life-changing experience in some of the poorest places on the planet. And I'm not overstating this.
No.
Right?
No.
And the epitome of dichotomy is Malak, because there's nobody's gonna floss like Malak. Like when she says she wants to be pampered, y'all can recognize you're talking top shelf. You're gonna have to bring some heavy weight with you to make that happen. The cards are gonna have to be black. But when she's not in that space, it is the complete opposite. Tell me how you raise your daughters, because there are 3, right? Tell me how you raise your daughters both in the lap of luxury, the top of the food chain, with a father who is one of the most accomplished I don't think it's fair to call him a comedian because it almost feels like I undercut the body of work that he
But
does.
that's what he calls himself.
Okay,
So that's fine.
then okay, the comedian and Chris Rock. How do you take someone children who born to a very educated, very intelligent family, a very wealthy family, and then also raise them in some of the abject, poorest communities on earth? Talk me through that.
Well, my motto and the motto that I live by is service isn't rent you pay for living. So first and foremost, I've raised my children to serve. That's number one, right? Other models I live by, if I get there before you do, I'll bore a hole and pull you through. Each one teach one. To whom much is given, much is required. So even in my children's playroom, the sayings that I just said to you, I painted around their playroom. Because from the moment they were able to read, I wanted them to understand that those of us who have been blessed must give back. And also, I think gratitude. For me, gratitude is one of the most important emotions that a person can have. And so if your children have been blessed the way mine have, and even yours have, right?
Yes, mine.
We want them to understand those blessings. We want them to be grateful for those blessings, and we want them to give back. And so that's how I've raised my children. So you're right. My kids have seen, are extremely well-traveled. They've been throughout Europe, throughout Asia, throughout Latin America. But in every trip, if it's not a work trip, I have always added on a volunteer component. So that's number one, no matter where we've been, no matter what.
I want people to understand, because it matters to me. One of the many things why you and I connected from the word go is because you're real. And so Malak, when she went, we took a trip. I didn't go, but she took 20, almost 30 of our kids from Capital Prep in Harlem and in Capital Prep in Bridgeport, and she took them to Deep Slip, South Africa, and from middle school to high school. And my kids said, Miss Malak is no joke. They said she ain't scared of nothing. I want you to talk about on a pretty granular level what you do because you don't volunteer. It's not really a volunteer trip. And again, it's more than a volunteer trip, because a volunteer trip, you paint a wall, right? You go in, you paint a wall, and then you go out and party for the rest of the night. That's a volunteer trip. Fine. The wall's painted, wasn't painted before. Awesome. That's not what you do. You do something much more enriching than that. Can you talk about what that is?
Well, I hope what I do is a cultural connection as well, right? I believe so strongly in humanity, and I believe in what connects us more than what does not connect us. And so first and foremost, your kids from Bridgeport and Harlem, as you can recall, were partnered with 30 kids on the ground, their same age, from Deep Slip, right? Kids who you would think had nothing in common. But after 2 weeks together, they learned everything that they had in common. So that's number one. And I think what makes, because it is a service trip, but I think what makes it different is that we empower the kids that we bring from the US to figure out what the problem is, right? We connect them with families, we connect them with other kids, and we give them the tools to figure out how can they be impactful and how best can they be impactful so when they leave, the impact is still resonating, right? And we give them the time, and we give them the space, and we give them the tools to do that. And then it's a cultural trip, because South Africa is amazing. It's an amazing culture, amazing food, amazing landscapes, amazing music. And so we make sure that we also enrich the kids that we bring in that way too.
One of the things that I think is also important is you never reminded the kids that we sent down from some of the poorest parts of America that they were poor. It never came up.
No, and what really ends up happening with a lot of the kids is that they come back and their entire sense of self has shifted, right? So if they left feeling like they were disadvantaged, if they left feeling like they didn't live in the best house or go or wear the best clothes or whatever it was, right? When you are confronted with global poverty, which most people aren't, right? Most people, I would, besides the poor, probably don't have an opportunity to meet somebody that may be living on $1 to $2 a day and what that looks like, right? Not just how it looks like. It's not just, Steve, the fact that you live in a shack or the fact that you don't have running water or the fact that you don't have electricity. You're talking about lack of access to information, lack of access to the internet, lack of access.
Because I want to make sure we stay there, because I think you're making a really profound point that is beyond, okay, you see somebody lives in what looks like a shed in many people's yards. What you're talking about is a depth of poverty that is beneath that of your dwelling.
Yeah, I think literally, when it comes to human rights, and in my work, I speak about fundamental human rights each and every day. And I think one of the worst human rights that poor people don't have is lack of access to information. When you don't have information, you can't even make a choice about your life. When you don't have information, you don't even know how to advocate for what is wrong and what should be a right in your life. So I spend a lot of time in the work that I do, making the folks that I care about, that I work with, understand that they have a fundamental human right to information. Let's start right there. If you don't have information, how are you going to make any changes?
Because not even an education conversation. It's not you go to school. That's not what this is.
That's not what I'm talking about right now.
You are.
That's huge, but no, I'm talking about access to information. Something that what do we do every day, Steve? We ask each other a question. We don't know it. We go to our phone and we Google it. And the information is right then and there. And then usually we can press a link, and in 5 minutes after we had an issue, we can get it solved. Imagine if you couldn't do that. You didn't have the phone. You didn't have the internet access. You didn't have
You're bringing up something I think is even deeper than that. It's less about whether or not you could find a recipe. You don't even know who is your representative.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
You don't even know where to go get a shot.
That's what I'm talking about.
You don't even know where the gas is, because the gas closest to you is gone.
The water has been shut off in your community 4 or 5 days, and you don't even know who to call or how to call.
Right. We're not talking about a contractor who won't come. We're talking about not even knowing who to contact for basic needs.
Right. Yeah.
You've just described poverty. I've spent my entire career either living or working in it, and sometimes both. And I never thought of it that way, Malak. I've never thought of poverty of the mind. For me, I've often thought of it of poverty as it relates to you can't go to school. But you're saying that you can't be a full human.
You can't be a full human. Exactly. I talk a lot about human beings. We're supposed to live flourishing lives. We're supposed to be able to live thriving lives. We're supposed to be able to live humane lives. And when you're poor and when you have a lack of access to information, it's not possible. It's not possible for you to live a thriving, flourishing life. And it's a fundamental human right for all to be able to do so.
What are you doing about that?
Thanks for asking, because I'm really excited about this latest project that I've started. And, people like you and others in education have really inspired me. And I take, what I learn from, because, Steve, I always say I'm not an educator, right? But
which is the weirdest thing. I don't know why you say it, but I guess thank you because you're paying deference to the people you see who are, but
who are educators, right?
You literally just educated me something that I never thought of. And I used to run a homeless shelter. I never thought for a second of a poverty beyond the bottom of they don't have internet access. Like they don't even know what they don't know.
They don't know what they don't know
about the basic things that people know in order to eat and to shop and to engage in their.
Right.
So you're more than an educator, but you're working on what?
So it's, the culmination of the work that I've done in South Africa. And as you know, I've done Journey for Change. I've worked with grandmothers who raising their orphan grandchildren, because South Africa still has one of the highest HIV/AIDS burdens in the world. And so there's so many orphans.
Like former President Donald Trump was claiming, South Africa.
Right, exactly. Dumbass. Oh God, let's not.
I know.
But in any case, there's a lot of orphan children who are being raised by their grandparents, and I've done a lot of work in that space. I've done a lot of work in microfinance, in terms of economic enrichment of poor people.
Everyone doesn't know what microfinance is.
So microfinance is a way in which you help poor people to start businesses, right? You invest in small businesses, teach them about finance so that they can make a living, particularly in areas where there's really no jobs. And so I
talked about that I think that's really powerful that could also be missed is it typically goes to women.
Oh, yes, it does.
Again, there are things that you know because you just live in this space.
Right.
Most people don't understand that.
And that's an important point. I would say probably microfinance organizations probably cater to 90% women. There's been just really some proven facts that when you invest in a woman, she will then invest in her family. And there'll be trickle down effects to lifting that family out of poverty. And then culminating effects on the community and the town and, the country and indeed the world, when you invest in women and girls. Unfortunately, when you invest in men, oftentimes they just invest back in themselves.
Okay,
right?
Well, I can believe that.
Trickle down effect doesn't happen. So
I can believe that.
That's a good point, and I'm glad you made me explain it.
And women of color, typically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just.
I would say women of all colors, though, right? Mm-hmm. Because unfortunately, when you look at global poverty, you really are looking at Black and brown people.
Yeah.
But anyway, with all the work that I've been doing, and it's all been fulfilling and hopefully impactful. But I came to a realization, just like you did in the career that you decided to do, that the only truly way to lift people out of poverty and to make a difference in their lives and hence the next generations to come is through education. When you're talking about South Africa, a country where the majority of Black people go to low-funded government schools with 60, 70, 80 kids in a class, not enough desks, not enough textbooks, oftentimes no clean running water. I got into clean and safe water recently just because I had to, not because I'm a clean and safe water person, but I ended up doing it because these schools that the kids that I work with were like being sick at school from drinking unsafe water. So all of these issues go on in the schools. So we started a scholars program. I lifted the name from my Journey for Change program here in the US. It's called Journey for Change Scholars for Girls. I spent 2 years building it, held 2 very distinct think tanks in South Africa with some of the greatest minds from all over the country, not just from Johannesburg, to talk about how do we build a holistic program that touches every part of a child's life? Because in South Africa, it can't just be about math, science, and literacy. Even though they have some of the worst math, science, and literacy scores in the entire world. South Africa is 127 out of 128 countries when it comes to math and science. That's how far behind they are, even though they are the largest economy on the continent, and they invest the highest percentage of their GDP into education, but it's just failing. And that has to do. This podcast is not long enough to talk about why, but we all know that it comes out of an apartheid past that wasn't that long ago, right? So still rebuilding.
That drives the expectations of the people who are in the schools. When you don't think that a person is in the school is fully human, because,
Exactly.
and they don't think that they're fully human because they haven't had
well,
access.
during apartheid, it was in the Constitution that you only wanted to educate a Black person enough to take water from the well or feed farm animals. That was literally in the African Constitution.
And your daughters grew up in these countries, because it wasn't just South Africa, but in these countries, learning how to live among and, quite frankly, be from, in the case of one of your daughters, who you adopted from South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, I remember taking Lola when she was about 6 or 7, and I was doing some home visits, and I found her outside, and she had this stick in her hand, and she was drawing shapes in the dirt, and just dirt all over her, and with another little child. And I said, Lola, what are you doing? And she looked at me and she goes, I'm playing. And I said, well, what are you playing? She was like, duh, I'm playing with a stick in the mud with a big grin on her face. And, children, we mess up children, Steve. It's like, it was innate to her to play with another child, and the toy was a stick and the canvas was mud. And she was as happy as she would have been in her tricked out playroom, at home. But let me finish telling you, I want to just tell you the components of this scholars program.
Of course.
Because this is what, for me, this is what we spent so much time kind of researching and figuring out what we needed. We have 7 core components. And of course, academic enrichment is number 1. And that is a real focus on math, science, and something called EMS, which is this mix of accounting and math that they have to take and really generally struggle with, and literacy. But we also have a gender-based violence component because South Africa has the highest burden outside of India of gender-based violence against women and girls.
Everyone doesn't know what gender-based violence is. It's a phrase that they think that they know, but they don't know.
It could be domestic violence, child abuse, sexual abuse, femicide, mental abuse. It's all of those fall under gender-based violence.
It could also be general mistreatment, meaning
general mistreatment of women and girls.
It isn't. You may not put your hands on her. You may not rape her, but what you do is you treat her as if she is the family pet.
Exactly. Right. So many girls in South Africa have either suffered from gender-based violence, and so with this program, we work with our girls if that's the case, but also we teach them to become gender-based violence ambassadors and reach out to their fellow students. We have a nutrition program, right? We know that you got to eat. You can't study, you can't go to school if you don't eat, right? So we have a nutrition program. We have an arts and culture program, very similar to Journey for Change, letting these kids see the beautiful country that they have and knowing that they belong in all of those spaces. We have a mental wellness program. We have hired a certified social worker to work with our children and their parents.
That's a clever addition.
And the parents. At first, it wasn't the parents. We've realized that we have to bring the parents along as well. And am I missing anything? I think those are the 7. There's a mentoring program. I'm sorry. We have a mentoring component as well. And so it's new. I started it before COVID, but have hired the whole team since COVID. So I haven't even met my team in person, believe it or not.
Wow.
But we're in our pilot phase and I'm very excited about it. And it's kind of what I'm spending all my time on right now.
As you should be. I recognize that because you still have 2 young ones, yes?
I do. I still have, so Zara is a senior.
So crazy.
I know. We leave on Sunday to go to LA to visit a couple of colleges.
This is so crazy. And then your youngest.
And then my baby is in 8th grade.
This is so bananas. When you travel as much as you do, and you take your children as much as you have, how do you comfortably co-parent in this setting?
You know what? Co-parenting kind of works out because I co-parent with someone who works an awful lot as well.
That's fair.
Right. So I think what I always try to do is make sure that when he's not working, he's able to spend as much time with the kids as possible. And we do send an awful lot of emails and pictures. And I think both of us have been really good with that from the very beginning to make sure that the other one feels that they're a part of whatever it is that we're doing with the kids.
You know, it's interesting that you didn't say it, but I'm hearing it. What I'm hearing you say is that there's an open, authentic communication between you and Chris about the children, so that no person feels like the other is hoarding the experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's the only way that it would work, right? And also that the children feel comfortable. I mean, we all the important occasions we come together, of course, for all the, birthdays and graduations and, special occasions, we're always celebrating our children together. And, have from the very beginning. So I think that, and by the way, he lives around the corner from me.
I do know that he did, but and I do. Why don't you tell?
My kids can walk back and forth.
You tell the story. So when you and Chris Rock got divorced, he could have moved to anywhere on earth, and you could have moved to anywhere on earth, but that's not what happened. What happened?
He bought a house around the corner.
It's so dope.
Yeah, and so my children able to go to the same schools, the same friends, the same life, really. So yeah, it is. And I mean, listen, he's a good dad. He when he's not working, he's always around. That is for sure.
What I always respect about people who get divorced and are still parents is when they recognize we just got to be grown-ups. Because this thing didn't work between you and me, I don't have to hate you. That's not what we have to do. Spend the rest of our lives talking mess about each other. Like, we ain't got to go out like that. And I really respected you. It was a tough divorce, I would imagine, not the easiest that anyone's ever been through. And to do it in front of everybody's gotta suck.
That's awful, because I'm not a public person.
You're not.
It might be easier for two people who are both quote public people, but I've never thought of myself as a public person.
You're not.
And the only time I like to talk is if someone is allowing me to talk about a project or a cause, right? And then I'm fine. But yeah, that was tough because I'm not the celebrity.
You're not. And not only are you not the celebrity, as you say, but you're not seeking public attention simply because you married somebody who you met when you were doing what you do now.
Yeah.
People don't recognize that y'all ain't meet at a club.
Yeah, no.
Not like anything's wrong with meeting people at a club, but that's not where you two met. He met you and you met him while you were out doing the same Lord's work that you do now.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you guys have found a way to make it work. What I find interesting is that we're at a phase in our lives where things are changing, right? So you still have an 8th grader, but you recognize that they're going to be adults.
I know. I'm looking forward though, Steve. I'm not actually, I know that when all of my babies are gone, goodness, listen, I've been parenting for so long, it's going to feel different, but I'm actually a little bit excited.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Let's excited.
Talk about that. What excites you about it?
Because, parenting is important to me. It is the most important job that I've ever had. And so I have, like most moms, made decisions that were not always in my best interest, right? I've said no to a lot of stuff.
Like what?
Oh gosh, a lot of stuff.
Because you did have pancakes with Prince.
Oh, I did have pancakes with Prince. That still remains after the birth of my children. Maybe then that's the next best memory.
So how did you end up with pancakes with Prince? And then we're gonna come back to some of the things that you've given up. So
that was the night that Chris actually hosted his first Oscars. And Prince used to, not just for the Oscars that Chris hosted, but for all the Oscars, used to give, everybody goes to the Vanity Fair party and Elton John's party, but the real party was at Prince's house.
Really?
Yeah. And he would set up his living room with his band, right? Very casual, right? And so we went, and we were there until the wee mornings of the hour. And then he went into his kitchen and he started making us breakfast. But my other Prince story that I love, because you don't understand, I love Prince. I came down to the aisle. Prince. There's a picture of Prince in my kitchen that I put up the day he died that's still there. When I was pregnant with Zara, Chris and I went on vacation. We went to Hawaii, went to Maui. So Lola was like 2. And I was like, when I say pregnant, I'm talking, I was not showing, nor had we told anybody, because it wasn't at the 12 weeks that, you want to talk about it. So no one knew that I was pregnant except for Chris. And coincidentally, Prince was playing a concert. And Chris and I were like, oh my God, can you believe it? Chris is playing Maui when we're there. And so we went backstage to say hello. And we're talking, and all of a sudden he puts his hand on my stomach. And and kind of looks at me like with this, weird look. And he just says, congratulations. And I said, congratulations about what? He was like, congratulations for your new baby. And I said, how in the world? Nobody knows.
Chris was an obstetrician?
Exactly. He said, he goes, I can just tell that you're with child.
Really?
I can tell you're with child. Yeah. So that's my favorite. I like that story even more than the breakfast story.
What was he like?
So amazing. And you have to understand, I'm like anyone else. I went to Purple Rain 12 times. I have Prince posters on my wall. When I was growing up, you were either Prince or Michael Jackson, and you had to choose. I was Prince, right? So I didn't grow up ever thinking that I would actually meet this person who I idolized. But I think that what I can say is that he was just such a normal guy. I mean, just such a normal, nice guy. Very calm, but very normal. Like the conversations that I had with him were just any old normal conversation.
If you were talking normally to Prince.
I'm talking like really normal.
Give me an example. I'm not asking.
I mean, I can't remember an exact thing, but I'm talking about if you run into somebody backstage and you just, there was no pretense. There was no big entourage. There was no, one time he used to play, like he would play New York, right? And he might play, it's so funny. Chris just sent pictures to my daughter of me on stage with Kim Kardashian dancing to Prince at Madison Square Garden.
He was trying to mom shame you. Chris, not okay.
Oh my God. But he would play these big shows, and then he would play these underground shows that you just had to know, he was playing.
Yeah.
I'm sure if he were still alive today, I wouldn't know anymore where he was playing, right? But Chris would always know where he was playing. And so I just remember going to this small, teeny tiny place downtown Manhattan. I brought one of Chris's cousins because she loved Prince too. And we all just ended up on a couch talking. And I remember having kind of like an out-of-body experience. Like, am I sitting on the couch with Prince downtown at 3:00 in the morning?
But he sounded like he was, everyone that I know who knew him says the same thing. The dude was mad down to earth. Like he was just a regular cat, like just a regular brother. Like he was just a brother. Like he. And I
think that's what he craved when he hung out with people. It was the normalcy, right? I really do.
It did seem like that was so important to him, to be in a place where he was with people who respected him just as him. And I've heard of those folks who went to the parties. They said the same thing. Like he welcomed you into his home and into his space and treated you like a normal cat. It was just a normal dude, because I think both you and I have come across people who are not Prince, and they take it way too far on the fame meter, and you're thinking, wow, you're just a jerk.
Yeah.
You're just not fun to be around.
Right.
I can't wait for this thing to be over so I can be far away from you.
Exactly.
So you have, as you mentioned, and I recognize you got to go, so I won't hold you much longer. I know I've held you longer than I anticipated, but when we get together, I enjoy talking to you. So you say that as a mom, there are a bunch of things that you said no to. What did you say no to? Because a lot of moms, they look at Malak Compton Rock, they see you fabulous, and they think everything you've wanted, you've done. You've got nannies here, you got drivers there. You didn't have to say no to anything.
Okay, so not true. But from a professional standpoint, right? Because of what I do, and you know how much I travel, Steve. You like to tease me that when you do text me and you ask me where I am in the world, you like to tease me because usually I'm not here. But
I'm always shocked that you text me because I text you and then I have to wait and I think, okay, she's probably flying to Antarctica right now. Why she didn't text me back? She got 6 more hours in the air.
Okay, you're exaggerating now,
Close.
but anyway, I've turned down a lot of opportunities that would have required me to travel even more. So that's, I would say, first and foremost. I've turned down, like you, I do speeches from time to time. I turn down a ton of them that, I look at the calendar and I say, where's this speech? Can I get back by this time? Can I get on a flight to get back home by this time so that I've only spent one night away from home? So, I've turned down a lot of opportunities that, could have been not just good for me, because oftentimes when I choose to do something, I'm also looking like, can this be good for the Angel Rock Project Foundation? Can this be good for the work that I do with South Africa?
Organization.
Yeah. And so, a lot of times I'll say yes, because I'm thinking this would be a good, networking opportunity, for my programs. But I said no to a lot of that. I have enjoyed and continue to enjoy every opportunity that I have with my kids. But when they're in college and when they go, I actually want them to stay away.
You know what?
I don't actually want them to come home.
And I'm not mad at you. I am.
I want to put them out there with everything that I've, the 18 years of nourishment, and I want them to go out there and I want them to fly.
There you go. That's Mason. Oh, wait, there you go.
Oh my goodness. That is such an amazing photo.
So Mason is.
I love it.
Mason got his associate's degree, as you know.
I know. That's why I was.
Before he graduated high school, and you know what? He's already setting up for his summer internship, and he wants nothing to do with our house.
So what does he want to do? I was looking for that picture that I just had of Mason.
He says he's interested in law. He's interested in communications. He would hate me to say that I think he's an educator. He wants no parts of it under any circumstances, no matter what. But he damn sure did work in a science program this summer, and he liked it. And I don't mention it. I don't say anything about it. If I say anything about it, he'll run further away from it. So right now, entertainment, law, communication, all the fancy stuff. But I know the deal.
We'll see.
But
that's the beauty of it, right? This is the fun. This is like the fun part. The same thing with Lola, right? So right now she's studying media communications. She has this love of food and culture. So in her brain, she wants to be Anthony Bourdain. She wants to tell stories about food, right? Yeah. And I love, I just love listening to her, what's percolating, what they want to do. And I think that's why I say, I don't want her to come home, because I want her, I put her out in the world, go grab it. Go, the world is your oyster. It really is. And so I have 5 more years, Steve.
I know.
And then, I'm not going to say how old I'm going to be, but I'm going to be,
I'm older than you are, so that's always better.
I am really looking forward to it, right? There, and that's the great thing. It's like that's the great thing about life, right? To stay excited,
Yeah.
and to stay creative, and to stay hungry. So,
And in your case, humble. You're not just hungry, you're humble.
well, thank you.
I really appreciate, man. I can't believe it went this fast. It really did. And I kept you long over, and I am so grateful that you were gracious enough to stay longer than I know you have other things you have to do. And it means a lot to me. Can you let folks know how they can find out more about the project that you're doing in South Africa?
Sure. Angelrockproject.com. And also you can find me and Angel Rock Project South Africa on Instagram and on Twitter with lots of information about our projects.
You are the best. I truly,
Thank
truly
you for having me.
Again, Pretty in Pink, doing the thing. And as always, a joy to talk to. Thanks so much. I want to just take a couple seconds to thank Malak Compton Rock for not just joining us tonight, but really being the light. She's somebody who genuinely cares about our community. And when I say our community, I don't mean just in the United States, but she sees herself as a global citizen. Mm-hmm. And as such, she creates opportunities for others, not just her own children, but other people's children. And there are so many people whose lives have been changed as a direct result of the work that you have done. So I want to thank you, Malak, and all those who work with you to make the lives of so many people so much better. I will say, as a father of a young man who you worked with, in all the things that he's had the opportunity to do, he still talks about the time.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That he says he was almost killed by a rhino on a tour. I know he's lying, but he loves to tell the story. Thank you so much, Malak. Have a wonderful evening, and let the kids know that Uncle Steve says, I miss you guys.
Same here.
All right. Take
Bye-bye.
care. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on No Dumb Questions. It's important to understand that the smartest person in the room is always the one with the best questions. Take the time to listen and ask good questions, and no dumb questions. Thank you. Y'all take it easy.